Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Atlanta FaZe top 3 again at Major 4 in Columbus, but arguably that placing flatters their performances this stage. A negative map count record over the entirety of it, and a defeat to OpTic and Thieves in comfortable fashion to go out of the tournament in the end. What is the problem with FaZe right now compared to their previous performances? Is it just that they can't beat OpTic no matter how hard they try? Or is it that Slasher and Cellium simply do not work together as an AR duo? Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to dive into today. Of course, the MVP went to Octane, the best AR in the game right now. I think it's pretty much hands down. He's been unbelievable at the moment. Okay, let's talk about Dashy and Scrappy and all these flows. Right now, Octane for what he does for the team, the comms, all that stuff. He's absolutely out of control so far. Bit of drama as well, as Ronnie likes to get into here on Twitter last night, between aBeZy, former owner, CEO, founder of, well, MLG back in the day, but also Esports Engine in the near past. I love browsing Esports Reddits and seeing fans rip the production level of a perfectly fine live event that they watch for $0 while simultaneously not understanding how egregiously expensive esports events are to operate due to NFL expectations with high school football revenue. Now, look, aBeZy knows a thing or two about running an esports event, and I think that he's certainly making some valid points on this subject. Generating revenue in esports is difficult. The fans don't spend as much money as in other sports, let's just say, in real life. Now, look, fundamentally, one of the frustrating parts is that these events that are run, a lot of the brunt of the cost by these events being run by New York and Boston and others is bared by the team itself. Like, the league doesn't even pay these teams to do it. I think they have to bear most of the cost themselves because the league runs the show and they make all the money, basically. So, really not ideal how that circumstance goes. And when the New York thing fell through, it's understandable what they did here, going to Columbus and making it happen. And there's an entirely different discussion to be had on how to actually generate money from esports fans and the way that Riot Games are going about it with some of their platforms they're building. But, you know, aBeZy makes a fair point. But fundamentally, right, if you look at what we have today, the $25 million buy-in league for a team, and you compare the setup we had this weekend for a major event with 500 grand on the line compared to what we used to have back in World War II Black Ops 4, like, it's not even particularly comparable. And aBeZy's like, oh, you know, you definitely know how to run a league, probably. It's like, okay, fair enough, aBeZy knows more about this. But from a fan perspective, it's obviously not ideal what we had this past weekend. So they've got to find a way to execute this better. I think fundamentally, the league has to, I mean, the league is spending a lot of money on the prize pools and also on these bounty matches, but like, they don't seem particularly willing to compensate the organizations that actually have to bear the brunt of the money. And okay, the organizations have sponsors, they have like a fan ticket sales that attends, but it's still a net negative hosting one of these events locally. And if the league doesn't maybe support these organizations and teams to do so a little bit more, then we might have more of these events in the future, is kind of what I'm getting at here, which we definitely don't want to be the case going forwards. Quick note as well from iLLeY, he's officially back in business. I believe last night he was playing ranked again with Arcitys, so pretty interesting stuff. Arcitys and, you know, of course, iLLeY talking about being a duo here as well. We did wonder even in the off-season whether kind of iLLeY Arcitys thing at Los Angeles Guerrillas could have been possible. I don't think LAG is still going to maintain Arcitys next year. Who knows what's going to happen with LAG, right, with the whole organizational stuff not being ideal, but maybe iLLeY Arcitys could be a duo. I don't know if it's a particularly heavy slaying duo, but, you know, we'll see what teams decide to do in the off-season. But let's talk Atlanta FaZe, because they got kind of crushed this stage compared to how they usually perform. One of the, probably the weakest they've looked in really the CDL history, to be honest. I mean, even Atlanta FaZe back in Modern Warfare 2019, they were always at least the second best team, you would say, really, to the Dallas Empire at the time. Now they're clearly the third best team. And even Simp's record, his 1.6 KD during stage 1 of Cold War Insertion Destroy, has been broken by 2 players. Pred with a 1.68 this day, I mean, it's absolutely absurd, and Drazah with a 1.64. I don't even know exactly how many Search and Destroy matches they played. I think that Pred might have actually played slightly more here than Drazah, but Drazah did go all the way, of course, and deserves an awful lot of credit. But yeah, 2 of the highest overall S&D KDs ever in the same stage. Remarkable stuff. But that's another record for FaZe gone and out the window. So look, JoeDeceives has been making his tier list on it. He still puts FaZe in the Sunday regulars category, obviously, because they always make Sunday. But in terms of how far they are behind OpTic and Thieves, it's quite significant right now. And even Ronnie currently had a bit of a hot take here, to be honest, putting Thieves and OpTic in the S tier, nobody in the A tier, and then FaZe down in B tier with Ultra, Subliners, and Surge. I think I quite like his list. I would probably just put FaZe in the A tier, to be honest, and then I'll have the rest of them slightly behind that. But still, the point is there that FaZe, for the first time in a long time, yes, they're still #1 in the CDL standings, but they are significantly behind Thieves and OpTic. They always get beaten by OpTic no matter what happens. They got crushed by them just a couple of days ago, and Thieves, when they played them, was also pretty comfortable. Okay, they won map 1, but after that, Thieves wiped the floor with them, really even won the Search and Destroy, which was pretty telling of where FaZe are, that when they do win, even series against Ultra or Subliners, it has to be in 5. They're not 3-0ing anyone really nowadays. They're not 3-1ing that many teams. I mean, yes, they bodied Surge in the first round, but a Surge then ended up placing top 8, so very interesting stuff. Now look, their overall placing, so Major 1 to 4, is pretty insane, right? Their average 2.5, I mean, they've always made the Sundays, significantly higher than Thieves, Ultra, or OpTic, of course, that are the top 4 teams. So FaZe always find a way to make it the distance, but they just can't deliver on a championship Sunday. Yes, they won Major 2, and that was very impressive, but since then, they haven't been the same team, largely because they're no longer winning 99% of their Search and Destroys. Eventually, like, that Major 2 run was basically all Search and Destroy. The hardpoint wasn't even that impressive. Their control was pretty good, but not exactly that impressive. They won all of their searches that event, and therefore they won the event. Guerrillas did the same thing with Slasher back at Major 2 the previous year. So, I mean, remarkable story that Major 2 apparently is when Slasher's teams just become unbelievable in Search, but, you know, FaZe, eventually their Search was going to fall off. Everyone was going to look into it. They might still win 65-70% of their searches, and they're usually good for a Game 5 win, and that's what's keeping them alive. But their respawn isn't there. Now, we saw yesterday that Formal was kind of, you know, putting the dagger in on Slasher, throwing a bit of a roast his way, maybe a little bit, right? Because we know that Formal and Slasher, he's kind of known himself as the Thanos hard counter over the years, and says to aBeZy here, we'd have won everything, just know about that. So, you know, who knows? Maybe at some point Formal returns to COD and he teams up with aBeZy. But I wanted to share some varying perspectives on what's going on with FaZe. Even Slasher gave his thoughts after, I think this is before the Sunday, so on Saturday night, on how they've been playing, and sometimes they don't play as well as a team. They overchow too much, they get too confident in their own ability, and they take chows they shouldn't. They don't play fundamentally well, they throw their lives away, and Slasher is frustrated that that is happening. But JoeDeceives reckons a lot of it comes down to their comms. He reckons their comms just straight up aren't good. Slasher, in fairness, on the teams he's been successful on, he's had Looney on Rise Nation back in the day, he had JCap on the Black Ops 3 Envy team. He never had to be like a crazy good IGL type guy as maybe an Octane is, let's say. And this team maybe lacks that compared to what OpTic have with Ghosty and what Thieves have with Octane. That might be a key thing that they've got to think about. And Rambo reckons that straight up Cellium and Slasher don't work as an AR duo.
I think that when it comes to hardpoint and control, when we watch this FaZe team and I listen to listen-ins, they probably have the worst communication out of the 3 teams in this category. And I don't think it's close, and I think they really, really need to work on it. I think they've been able to get away with it now for a while, but they just don't small talk enough, at least it seems like in matches compared to Thieves and OpTic, who really yap well. So I think FaZe need to work on that.
Thoughts on Cellium? He's probably... I feel like he's kind of taken a little, not shunned, but like he's not so much in the limelight this year because aBeZy's playing so well, but I still think Cell's, I mean, top 5. Cell's gross, man. I just don't really like the Cell Slasher AR duo, I'm going to be honest. I just don't think it's... Like, it's almost like you have 2 guys who are basically playing for cuts, kills, rather than like having one guy who's kind of like playing the supporting, closer to hill plays, I feel like. Like, it's just from an outside perspective, I don't like it as much. No, Slasher's great. It's just, I just don't think it makes sense given the play styles. I still think iLLeY was perfect for this team. I didn't really like the roster change to start with. I don't necessarily mind them replacing iLLeY with Austin because I feel like this roster thrives with an IGL, like an enabler. Like, if FaZe would have like got Ghosty like at the start of the year, if everyone knew who Ghosty was and how strong he could have been as an IGL, like this team would be insane. But yeah, I don't know. This is again super outside perspective, looking in. They're winning major. They're still top 3 team. Like, don't get me wrong, they're still hella good. And Austin as well is a great player. But if you're like talking from like the perfect mold of a team, like I feel like that's kind of where the issues lie a little bit, personally.
So many varying perspectives on why FaZe are struggling. And look, I say struggling. They're number one in the standings. They're coming top 3 every event. But right now they look kind of worlds away. Not worlds away. They could always win on Sunday. But they look a significant portion behind where they need to be to win. Especially with our Thieves are saying that they're going to get even better going forwards. And OpTic still have another level, I think, to climb in terms of success in Grand Finals. Now, one of their main issues, FaZe, is that when they get to the World Championship Major 5, it's quite likely they will have to play OpTic at some point. And OpTic's record against FaZe is absurd. It's 9-1. I thought this is a beautiful graphic here, actually, just to show that all the top 3 teams have their various demons, right? So FaZe actually have a great record against Thieves, 11-6. Thieves always seem to own OpTic. Even on the 100 Thieves days, it was the case back in the day. 8-5 for Thieves over OpTic. But then OpTic completely own FaZe. Like, at least Thieves are kind of fighting back against FaZe. At least OpTic are kind of fighting back against Thieves. But FaZe are not fighting back against OpTic, right? And that is a key issue for them. So these were the overall numbers this stage. Search and Destroy 10-5. That's been carrying them hard. Control 4-6. I believe they're 1-4 at the major. And then Hardpoint 7-11 overall. 4-5, I believe, just at the major. And this might be, I'm not sure about this, but it might be the first time in COD history where FaZe, okay, let's say CDL history, where FaZe have gone negative in a stage. They 6-4 series win-loss, but 21-22 map win-loss. Like, I don't know if FaZe have ever really gone negative in an entire stage before in terms of map win-loss, which happened this time. Slasher certainly struggled online, especially in the hardpoints, but he turned it up on LAN. Cellium wasn't quite as good on LAN as maybe he usually is, and Simp and aBeZy were, especially Simp, didn't really have quite the takeover impact in the respawns that we would usually expect to see, especially compared to on day 1 of the game. On day 1 of the major, he played Surge on, well, LSELO control and absolutely fried them, and we're like, okay, Simp might be back, but then the rest of the weekend it just didn't really materialize. And especially with Thieves and Kenny saying, look, I don't think we're at final form yet, we've got still some work to do, some work to improve on. That's scary for a lot of teams. If Thieves can take a level up, if OpTic can take a level up and where a FaZe, like, they're going to be struggling. So what do they need to change? Can they really solve this team in the near term? They've still got an unbelievable amount of talent. Their Search and Destroy is still going to be great, but it's the respawns they've got to solve, and their hardpoint has been getting a little bit better. Their controller has fallen off, and maybe Rambo's correct that Slasher and Cellium just don't work. And this is a question that I would raise, and even in the off-season it was a discussion that we had, because Shotzzy was going to join FaZe, Simp was going to go to the flex, and Cell was going to be the main. And then eventually they said, all right, no, we actually do need a main ER. We want someone guy to, be the leader, help our Search and Destroy, be a bit of a more veteran presence, and Cellium and the others rate what Slasher's done very highly in that regard, but the results aren't really there. And is Slasher the main? Is Cellium the main? Like, how does that work? Because they don't have a clear flex player. Slasher has typically been a main AR player, likes to play a bit slower in that regards. Cellium, though, is not really a fast AR, right? The guy likes sitting in the hill lately, likes holding down positions and holding down head glitches, and whether the SMGs have the support of a fast-paced flex player as they maybe should is a bit of a debate. And maybe if this team had a guy like Scrappy instead of Slasher, right, a bit more fast-paced AR kind of to work with, maybe that would be the way to go. So there's a debate to be had on that one, certainly, and I think Rambo might be right, to be honest, that AR duo, given that it's been a few months now of them trying to make it work in respawns, it hasn't unlocked great performances from Slasher, and it hasn't unlocked great performances in their SMGs, which is really the key to success. Just before we close out the video here we go from the Las Vegas Legion. Not the prettiest numbers here. Yes, their online performances were good. LAN, though, didn't really go to plan here, right? And TJ, his Search and Destroy actually wasn't crazy good this stage, but still it is the tool in his arsenal that keeps him on this team, I think. Standy was certainly their standout player online, but unfortunately didn't materialize when it came to LAN. And just to mention quickly here, the story of Karma. We worked on a phenomenal documentary on the Breaking Point side, coming very shortly, I believe in the next few days, once a few issues are being ironed out. But yeah, beautiful stuff. Very much enjoyed to hear your thoughts on all this in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.